into something deeper, something that has become almost a second identity. It's not just about the clothes or the makeup, it's about the transformation, the feeling of shedding the rigid expectations of who I should be and stepping into a persona that feels freer, more expressive, more alive. Yet, it's LVED not without its risks. I've never been caught. Not by friends, not by family, and certainly not by Isabella, my girlfriend. Isabella is the one person whose opinion matters more than anyone else's. She's smart, beautiful, and charming in a way that makes it impossible not to fall for her. She doesn't know the depth of my secret. She knows I like to dress up sometimes, in a playful, teasing way, but she has no idea that my fascination goes far beyond casual fun. Our relationship is complicated. Isabella has always had this magnetic energy, a way of teasing and challenging me, testing my limits. When we first met, it was clear she liked to push boundaries, to play games that revealed vulnerabilities in a playful way. I, on the other hand, have always been cautious, careful, walking the line between indulging my fantasies and keeping my life under control. Being with her has been thrilling, but it's also terrifying, because I know that one wrong move could unravel everything I've worked to keep hidden. It was a Friday evening, the kind of quiet night where the city's hum feels distant and your own apartment seems to shrink around you. Isabella had gone out with friends, leaving me alone for the first time all week. The silence was intoxicating, a rare opportunity to indulge in something I've kept carefully secret. Tonight, I had plans that involved trying something new, something daring. I pulled open the wardrobe, my fingers brushing across the fabrics I know so intimately. Satin, lace, silk. They feel like extensions of my own skin, each piece carrying memories of past transformations. Tonight's choice was bold. A fitted dress, black with subtle hints of shimmer, delicate enough to be feminine but sharp enough to carry an edge. My heart raced as I held it against my chest, imagining the reflection in the mirror, imagining the way Isabella would look at me if she could see this side of me. Then came the makeup. The ritual has always been almost sacred, a way to mark the transition from Alex the man to Alex the persona, the alter ego that I let the world see only in secret. Foundation, blush, eyeshadow, eyeliner, mascara. I applied each layer carefully, feeling the familiar thrill with every brushstroke. My reflection began to change, and with it, my entire sense of self shifted. I wasn't just putting on makeup, I was stepping into a world where I could be someone else entirely. The final touch was the wig. Long, chest, and the first thing you notice about my apartment is how ordinary it looks. Nothing fancy, nothing out of the ordinary, just the sort of place that people don't expect secrets to hide in. But if anyone had peeked behind the living room door or glanced into the small, cluttered bedroom, they would have seen the chaos that truly defines my life. Clothes and accessories, wigs and shoes, makeup palettes scattered across the vanity. It's a world carefully concealed beneath the mundane surface, a world that has become both my escape and my prison. I'm Alex, 26, living a life that balances precariously between normalcy and a hidden obsession. To my colleagues, friends, and the outside world, I'm just another guy working a predictable job in graphic design. I spend my days creating logos, designing websites, and sitting in meetings where everyone thinks they know who I am. And in a way, they do, but only the version I let them see. The real me, the me that flourishes when nobody is watching, is entirely different. I've been cross-dressing for as long as I can remember, but it started as a secret thrill, something playful, almost silly at first. Over the years, it evolved brown hair that cascades in soft waves, framing my face and softening the sharp edges of my jaw. I adjusted it carefully, making sure it fell perfectly. The transformation was complete. I stood before the mirror, barely recognizing the person staring back. Feminine, confident, vulnerable, all at once. I touched my cheek, ran my hands along my waist, and felt a thrill that bordered on fear. It was in that moment that the idea struck me. Isabella had always been playful, always testing limits. What if I turned the game around? What if I dared to push the boundaries in a way neither of us had explored before? The thought made my pulse quicken. I could hear her teasing voice in my head, the way she laughed when she caught me off guard, and I imagined how electrifying it would be to challenge her in return. I started to plan. A game, I decided. A game of control, of risk, of exposure. A game where the stakes were high, where every choice could lead to discovery, or disaster. I would see how far I could go, how convincing I could be, and most importantly, how Isabella would react when she discovered that the playful teasing had turned into something much more real. I moved through the apartment with careful precision, testing my heels on the carpet, practicing subtle gestures, adjusting my posture. Each movement carried a thrill, a dangerous excitement that made me feel alive in a way that normal life rarely allowed. I was Alex, but I was also more than Alex. I was someone untethered, someone daring, someone willing to play the ultimate game. And in the quiet of the night, as the city lights glimmered outside my window, I made a silent promise to myself. Tonight, I would play the feminization game. And no matter what happened, I would see it through to the end. The apartment seemed to hold its breath, the shadows stretching long and silent across the walls. The mirror reflected not just my image, but the tension, the anticipation, the electric thrill of stepping into a role that was both dangerous and irresistible. The game had begun. And I knew, deep down, that nothing would ever be the same again. The moment I decided to play the game, my body seemed to pulse with a combination of exhilaration and dread. My apartment, which usually felt like a safe sanctuary, now became a stage. Every object, every shadow, every whisper of sound carried potential consequences. I could almost hear Isabella's teasing laugh echoing through the walls, and for some reason, it made my heart race faster. I slipped into the black dress, feeling the silky fabric cling to my skin in a way that was intoxicating and slightly terrifying. The weight of it was comforting and alien at the same time, reminding me that this was not my ordinary self, it was a version of me that had been hidden away, waiting for a night like this. I studied my reflection in the mirror, turning slowly, letting the curves of the dress define my silhouette. Every movement made me feel more exposed, more vulnerable, yet strangely empowered. The heels were the hardest part. They were sharp, black, and elegant, the kind of shoes that demanded attention and balance. My legs trembled slightly as I took my first step, a thrill coursing through me at the sound of the heel clicking against the hardwood floor. I tried to walk normally, but my body instinctively straightened, my posture transforming as if the shoes themselves were commanding me to become someone else entirely. As I adjusted my chestnut wig for the 100th time, I heard a soft noise from the hallway. My pulse spiked. I froze, every nerve alert. It's just the city, I told myself. But deep down, I knew it wasn't the city, it was the tension, the thrill of the unknown. Every creak of the building, every whisper of wind against the windows, became part of the game I was playing with myself. And with Isabella. I moved carefully to the living room, where the large mirror framed the space. Standing there, I allowed myself a slow, deliberate examination. The transformation was nearly complete. My lips were tinted a soft rose, eyes lined with delicate precision, cheeks lightly flushed. The reflection staring back at me was undeniably feminine, undeniably alluring, yet undeniably fragile. My heartbeat quickened as I realized just how convincing I looked. For a moment, I allowed myself to imagine the shock on Isabella's face if she walked in right now. Would she laugh? Scold me? Or would she, terrifyingly, see something she had never anticipated? The thrill of possibility surged through me. I knew the rules of this game were mine to define, but the stakes were higher than any I had faced before. I had to maintain the illusion perfectly, or risk revealing my secret entirely. My hands shook slightly as I picked up a pair of delicate earrings, fastening them to my ears with careful fingers. Each tiny adjustment felt monumental, each brushstroke of makeup, each flick of the hair, a test of how far I could push this transformation without being undone. But as the initial excitement began to settle, a shadow of fear crept in. What if something went wrong? What if Isabella returned early? What if a neighbor decided to peek through the blinds? The anxiety made my stomach twist in knots, but it also made every sensation sharper, more intense. I was teetering on the edge between thrill and panic, and the line between reality and fantasy blurred. I moved to the small bedroom, the final frontier of my self-created challenge. Here, I had laid out the last elements of the transformation. Stockings that hugged my legs tightly, gloves that made my fingers feel delicate, and a small, ornate clutch that completed the ensemble. Each piece was meticulously chosen to enhance the persona I had created, but also to serve as a test of my commitment. Could I carry myself through this as if I truly belonged in this form? Could I navigate my own home with the poise and confidence this character demanded? Sitting on the edge of the bed, I took a deep breath and closed my eyes. The internal struggle was overwhelming. Part of me thrilled at the idea of being someone else, someone Isabella had never seen, someone whose every movement whispered seduction and mystery. Another part of me screamed caution, warning me that one wrong step could destroy everything, my relationship, my reputation, my carefully guarded secret. I decided to take a risk. I reached for my phone, dialing Isabella's number, not to call her, but to check the time, to remind myself how long I had before she might return. The familiar ringtone made my pulse spike, and I imagined her answering, the sound of her voice slicing through the tension. But the call went unanswered. Relief and disappointment mixed together, heightening the sense of isolation, of being completely alone with my transformation. I paced the apartment, each step in my heels resonating like a drumbeat in the otherwise silent space. I practiced gestures, subtle movements, tilts of the head, the soft sway of my hips. I whispered phrases to myself, testing the femininity of my voice, the cadence, the softness. Each trial brought a shiver of fear and delight. I was performing for no one, yet imagining an audience in every shadow, every reflection. And then it happened. A knock at the door. My blood ran cold. My heart thudded so loudly I was sure it would betray me. The sound echoed in the empty apartment, and for a moment I considered ignoring it, pretending the apartment was empty. But curiosity, and a reckless streak that had always defined my cross-dressing adventures, got the better of me. I moved toward the door, adjusting my dress, straightening my wig, and preparing for the unknown. Through the peephole, I saw nothing but a shadow, blurred and indistinct. I debated opening it. Was it a neighbor? A delivery? Or was it someone who could expose everything? My hands trembled as I reached for the doorknob, the cool metal grounding me in reality even as my mind raced with possibilities. Slowly, I turned the knob. And there she was. Isabella. Or at least, someone who looked like her. My pulse spiked as I realized that in the dim hallway light, and with my heightened senses, I could no longer be certain who I might encounter. The suspense was unbearable, the thrill almost tangible, like a live wire pressing against my skin. I froze, poised in the middle of the hallway, dressed in my full feminine persona, every nerve alert. The game was no longer hypothetical. It had begun. And the first challenge of the feminization game was clear: maintain composure, keep the secret, and navigate a world that suddenly seemed too small, too dangerous, too charged with possibility. Every instinct told me to retreat, to hide, to shed the persona and return to safety. But the game had already begun. I had crossed the threshold, and there was no turning back. The knock at the door had frozen me for a heartbeat, but curiosity and adrenaline outweighed caution. My heels clicked against the hardwood as I took a careful step forward, the dress swaying with each movement. I reached the door, hand trembling over the knob, every nerve alive with fear and anticipation. When I finally opened it, there was no one there. Just the faint echo of footsteps disappearing down the hallway. Relief washed over me, but it was fleeting. My heart continued to pound like a drum, and I realized how fragile my entire charade was. Every sound, every movement in the apartment could betray me. I returned to the living room, adjusting my wig and smoothing the folds of my dress. It was impossible not to feel exposed, yet exhilarating. This was the essence of the game: to be seen as someone else, someone daring and feminine, while teetering on the brink of discovery. Every instinct screamed caution, but my curiosity had a voice louder than fear. I walked toward the mirror again, examining my reflection. The high heels had made me taller, the dress had transformed my silhouette, and my makeup softened every feature into something delicate, inviting. I touched my lips lightly, tracing the gloss with my fingertip, marveling at how convincing I looked. My reflection was almost a stranger, yet undeniably me. Then I heard it, a soft creak from the bedroom. Someone was in the apartment. My pulse jumped into overdrive. I froze, straining to listen. The sound came again, deliberate, measured. It was too controlled to be a random noise. I was not alone. I darted to the hallway, glancing around corners, my breath quick, trying to control the trembling in my legs. Every sense was heightened. Every shadow seemed to hold a potential revelation. And then, just as I rounded the corner, I saw her. Isabella, or someone who could ruin everything. Her eyes widened in shock, and for a moment, the world seemed to stop. What are you doing? Her voice was a mixture of astonishment, disbelief, and something else I couldn't quite place. Amusement, maybe, or admiration. I stammered, trying to explain, but the words caught in my throat. The persona I had worked so hard to perfect wavered under the weight of her gaze. My heart raced, and for a split second, I felt like a child caught doing something forbidden. Yet beneath that fear was a strange exhilaration, the thrill of being seen, truly seen, in this other identity. I was playing the game. I finally managed to whisper. The feminization game. I wanted to see what it felt like. Isabella took a step closer, her expression unreadable. You mean, all of this, you? She gestured to the dress, the makeup, the heels. I nodded, unable to speak. My hands twisted nervously in front of me. Then she smiled. A small, knowing, almost dangerous smile. So the rumors were true. You've been hiding this from me, and now you're standing here, in full transformation. My stomach twisted. Did she find it fascinating? Disgusting? The uncertainty was unbearable. Every instinct told me to retreat, to escape, to strip away the persona and return to safety. But the game wasn't over. Not yet. She circled me slowly, examining every detail, her eyes sharp, calculating. You've done this well, she said finally. Better than I expected. Her tone was both approving and challenging, like she was testing me, daring me to continue. A shiver ran down my spine. Approval from Isabella was intoxicating, but her unpredictable reaction kept me on edge. I had expected scolding, embarrassment, maybe even anger. Instead, I faced a challenge, a test of courage and control. Could I maintain this persona under her scrutiny? Could I survive the next few minutes without breaking down or giving away my secret? Then the knock came again. Louder, insistent. I froze. Isabella's gaze shifted to the door, her expression unreadable. I think someone's coming, she murmured. And if they see you like this, she didn't finish the sentence, but the implication was clear. Exposure, humiliation, ruin. My mind raced. The apartment had always been a safe stage, but now the stakes were real. I had to make a choice, hide, flee, or face the intruder with a persona I had so carefully built. Isabella moved closer, her hand brushing against mine. Do you trust me? She asked softly. Her touch sent a shock through me, and for a moment, the fear receded under a wave of warmth and connection. Yes, I whispered, my voice trembling but honest. Good, she said, her tone firm. Then you're going to stay. You're going to finish this game, with me. The knock came again, almost urgent now. We exchanged a glance, understanding without words that the next moments would define everything. I could feel the tension in the air, thick and suffocating, yet charged with anticipation. I adjusted my wig, smoothed my dress, and straightened my posture. I had become someone else entirely, someone daring, confident, and yet exquisitely vulnerable. This was the true heart of the feminization game. The risk, the exposure, the thrill of living on the edge of discovery. Isabella opened the door before I could react. A neighbor, unsuspecting and casual, peeked in, holding a package. I froze, the heels digging into the floor, every muscle taut with fear. But Isabella smiled faintly and stepped forward, subtly shielding me. Thanks, she said to the neighbor, taking the package with ease. The intruder left, oblivious to the secret standing just behind the door. I exhaled shakily, my knees weak. The game had survived its first real test. But the adrenaline still coursed through me, my pulse hammering like a drum. Isabella's eyes held a spark of mischief as she turned back toward me. You survived that, she said. But the game isn't over. Not by a long shot. I nodded, a mix of relief and renewed tension flooding through me. Every nerve ending seemed alive, every sense heightened. The feminization game was no longer just a challenge. It had become a battleground of identity, desire, and secrecy. And in that moment, I understood that the stakes had escalated beyond anything I had imagined. My heart raced, my mind spun, and yet a small, dangerous thrill made me grin. This was only the beginning. The mirror reflected a stranger's face back at me, yet it was undeniably mine. Vulnerable, fearful, yet undeniably powerful. And the game had just begun. The apartment was quiet again, but the silence was heavy, charged with every heartbeat and unspoken thought between Isabella and me. My heels still clicked softly on the hardwood as I moved toward the mirror, adjusting the dress, smoothing the wig. My reflection stared back, fragile and strong at once, a perfect illusion, yet entirely real. Isabella watched me from across the room, her expression unreadable. I could feel the weight of her gaze, intense and probing, as if she could see straight through the layers of fabric, makeup, and pretense. You've done well today, she said softly, but her tone carried something else, an unspoken warning. I swallowed hard, heart hammering.
I
I didn't expect anyone to come, I admitted, my voice small. I thought I was safe. You were, she said, stepping closer. But safe doesn't mean the game is over. And safe doesn't mean you're ready. Her hand brushed lightly against mine, a fleeting touch that sent shivers down my spine. I could feel both comfort and danger in her presence. Suddenly, the phone rang. The sharp sound cut through the tension like a knife. I jumped, nearly tipping over in my heels. Isabella moved first, answering it, but she froze as soon as she spoke. Her eyes widened, and I followed her gaze toward the doorway. Through the small peephole, I saw a shadow. Someone was outside. Someone who didn't belong. The package earlier hadn't been the only surprise. My chest tightened, and I felt panic rise, raw and immediate. Isabella hung up, her eyes locking onto mine. They know, she whispered. And they're coming in. I stumbled back, the world tilting. The thought of being discovered, of having this secret exposed, made my stomach twist painfully. Every careful step I had taken, every hour spent perfecting my disguise, was on the verge of collapse. Stay calm, Isabella said firmly. You can't let them see you like this, not yet. I nodded, though my body trembled. The heels felt impossibly high, my dress suddenly heavy, the wig tight against my scalp. I wanted to tear it all off, to return to safety, to be me again. But a part of me, daring, reckless, wanted to stay, to face whatever came with the persona I had crafted. Footsteps echoed in the hallway. Louder. Closer. I could hear the faint click of shoes, the subtle rustle of clothing. My pulse raced. I was trapped between fear and exhilaration. Every instinct screamed to hide, yet the thrill of being exposed, of almost being discovered, was intoxicating. Isabella took my hand, holding it tightly. Whatever happens, we face it together, she said. Her voice was both reassuring and challenging, daring me to continue. The door handle rattled. My breath caught. I could feel every nerve ending on fire. Was it a neighbor? A friend? Or someone who could unravel everything? I glanced at the mirror one last time. My reflection stared back, vulnerable and defiant, every ounce of transformation evident. And in that reflection, I saw the truth. The game had consumed me. There was no turning back.